Hey guys, what's going on? We're back with another Mythic Plus Enhancement Shaman video. This time we are doing a 13 Ara-Kara, trying to time it. And, well, we do, or else I wouldn't be showing it, I guess. But anyways, as you know, Enhancement has been on the lower end of meters lately. And we didn't receive any form of buff notes or anything. Surprisingly, not even for Totemic, which kind of shocked me. Like, I could see Stormbringer not getting anything for a bit, but not seeing Totemic get buffed kind of threw me for a loop. I think I mentioned this last week, but um, yeah, it's definitely a bit of an annoyance, but we did have our shine, I guess, in season two. Now, if everybody was doing the same amount of DPS, like the exact same, I am curious to how things would go about, or if everybody was in like within 0.5% of a difference. I think right now we're at like a, I don't know, 5% difference, maybe more actually, maybe 10%. I mean, it's much closer than it's ever been before. Like, if you look back on, Miss the Pandaria or something like that, you look at those numbers and we were much closer than we are before. But nobody likes being in last place, right? It's certainly not a good feeling. And, it's difficult to not feel that way, even if you even if we were all doing the same amount of damage, whoever is in last place is still gonna feel like crap. I don't know. I don't know. But like in the end, we hope we get buffs. We were shining in season two at the very start. Actually at season one it was our real shine where we were doing a lot of damage. We were, quite close to the top. But then season two came along. We were looking good. We saw some Stormbringer buffs, but everybody else seemed to get buffed, which slowly brought us down the list, which didn't feel too great by the end of the season, but it is what it is. We had our shining moments at the start and at the end of season one. And then come season three, now we don't really, we're not really shining in anything. Now, I'd say we are much stronger in Mythic Plus than we are in Raid. Um, but it's still comparatively to like the Frosty case, the Arcane Mages, those top specs, we're not really close to them. But I mean, I can't say we're in the worst spot possible. I mean, we're definitely viable, like competitively to majority of specs, but it maybe if they nerfed, I don't know if nerfing the top specs or buffing the lower specs would be better. I'm really not sure, but they do have to be very careful with enhancement. Um, and I'm sure everybody that plays it knows enhancement can get out of control very fast with very small buffs. And we've seen it before. Like season one, we saw the buffs go crazy and they had to nerf, and then season two came around and we were a bit lower, but wasn't like crazy. But yeah, so in my eyes, the buffs that they would need to do need to be outside of Ascendance for Stormbringer. And for Totemic, they have to be extra careful because if they keep buffing Lavlash, it's just going to become like a one button thing, which it kind of is right now. It's very similar to Stormbringer, but just with a really annoying opener. And if they buff any of its AoE, it's just going to get out of hand because I think Totemic is actually competitive in Mythic Plus, but very far behind in single target, whereas Stormbringer just kind of shines in both. But for Stormbringer, they need to take a look at everything. Like, I think if they buff Tempest single target purely by a little bit, it wouldn't be the worst thing ever. If they buff Storm Strike a little bit, that would be great, and maybe Crash Lightning. Buff the outside of Ascendance things. Like, it's definitely it's not easy to buff a spec that relies a lot on RNG right now. with Tempest and Ascendance, deeply rooted elements. I know a lot of people don't like playing it, but it does have its perks to play with high RNG to push the high numbers without, having to have PI and everything like that. Um, but I do think like a small buff to Tempest pure single target, a buff to Crash Lightning would be great because we saw it really shine last season due to the tier set, and now it's just fallen off and become a Maelstrom generator in Season 3. We don't really use it for its power, we use it just to generate Maelstrom, and that doesn't really feel all that great. And I believe they nerfed Crash Lightning in Season 2 to compensate for the tier set going crazy with it. So I would really like to see that come back. I know Crash Lightning's one of my favorite skills. It's really flashy, really cool. It doesn't really do a whole lot, but I just think it looks cool and it's a nice frontal AoE. I don't know. It just seems cool and it empowers it really does feel like an enhancement spell, unlike some other stuff where it empowers your weapons with nature power and causes you to do small frontal cleaves after with abilities. It's something that I think should be known for its AoE damage, but right now it's not. It's mostly just chain lightning and tempest. Honestly, it's mostly just tempest frig, but you know, what are you gonna do about hero talents being amplified, right? So I would like to see a crash lightning buff. It's hard to say to buff Stormstrike, and the reason being is if they continue buffing Stormstrike up, it will become more valuable than spenders, right? And that's not something you want to see. It really, really isn't. But maybe that's something to happen. I don't know. I do think enhancement needs a serious looking at, and I really do want to know what Blizzard's idea for enhancement is again, like because in MOP they have a little iteration where it says enhancement is a totemic wielding melee class that uses the power of the elements to enhance its melee weapons. And, that's cool and all, but to me, right now, it doesn't quite fit that description. Now, I haven't actually tried to look at the description for retail as of late, but, maybe it's still the same, or maybe it's different, or maybe it's not even there. I don't know. But yeah, it's which to me, Legion and BFA, I've said this numerous times over a course of videos and streams. Legion and BFA really hit the enhancement feel. Now, those designs came with some serious issues, which I can agree with. But in the core fantasy of those designs, I think that may have been probably some of my favorite style of enhance. Just the in terms of fantasy, it really felt like an enhancement shaman. So if they could maybe take some of that inspiration and bring it into the retail version, I don't know. I don't know, but I really do want to know what their thoughts are on the current enhancement shaman and where they plan to go with it because right now it feels like very confusing, I guess, because most of our damage is Maelstrom spenders, which kind of makes sense because it is our spender, but it doesn't really feel like our melee strikes. It feels like maybe Maelstrom is too strong. I mean, if you look at the talent tree, it's like you got 250% damage increase to Maelstrom spenders. Like there's way too many modifiers going on, and we've seen issues in the past, specifically Dragonflight when it first got introduced. Elemental Blast was hitting like a monster truck, and I mean it was the most hard hitting spell in the game until they nerfed it. So it really, I don't know. I don't know. But also, Maelstrom used to be this RNG style resource, and now it's become more of a just a almost like a rage bar, I guess, in a way. It doesn't really feel like it's RNG anymore. I mean, it's still, sometimes you do get that bad, but you have a lot of ways to generate it without, having to wait for your auto attacks or stuff like that. So it's I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with enhancement. Although I do like the current playstyle, but I also think Ascendance really needs a adjustment or a change because right now, if we ascend, we're just pressing Storm Strike or Wind Strike. Sorry. That's it. That's all you do. Even at AoE, all you're doing is you're wind striking for the majority of it. And that's fine and dandy, but it doesn't really feel amazing, I guess. Like it's cool, but it kind of feels weird, you know, where we have this enormous toolkit of abilities and we pop our cooldown and all those just disappear and we press one button. It just seems really odd. And I think looking at Elemental, the way they redid Elemental's Ascendance was insane. It went from a lava burst spamming cannonball thing, right? Where to now it uses all of its abilities and it just continues with its basic rotation while being empowered. You know, Ascendance for enhancement, and the same goes for Resto Shaman, right? All your healing gets amplified and distributed amongst your team. Like that's crazy. And then you got enhancements where it's like, okay, you get range, which is great, and you get wind strike, which is great, and nothing else really matters. So all you have to do is press wind strike. And I feel like, Thorm's Invocation has amplified that even more. Even though I really do like Thorm's Invocation, it's really cool. It's really put the emphasis on okay, all you got to do is Storm Strike now, and I really think that's an issue. So now they have announced they are looking at a lot of approachability and stuff like that come into midnight, but I am curious if enhancement is making that list now. I know Totemic should hopefully make that list because of how absurd it is, but Stormbringer on the other hand, we've been extremely dumbed down. Like you're mostly just storm striking and lightning bolting and that's it. That's all you got to do, or chain lightning for AoE. There's no real thinking or anything like that, which I don't necessarily have an issue with, but I mean, you look at my bars and I got 50 keybinds and I'm using 4 of them consistently, right? Like I have all these spells and abilities and I don't even use half of them. Seems kind of seems kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But like I don't know. We need I think we need a new Ascendance. And I think that's the big thing for enhancement right now is we need a different Ascendance. I really do. Thorm's Invocation is really cool, but it's proven it has its issues and it puts an extreme amount of power behind Ascendance, making it to where we only do damage while in Ascendance. And, our tier set has actually amplified that even more by granting Ascendance, anytime you enter it, a Tempest stack. So, like, I don't know. I really don't know what they plan to do with enhancement, but I really do think Ascendance might be one of the bigger issues right now, and maybe they should take a look at that and try and redesign it in a way that makes use of the whole kit. But I don't know. I don't know. I know it's always been focused on Storm Strike, for instance, in Mists of Pandaria when it was first introduced. Your Storm Strike didn't have a chance to reset, but it turned into Storm Blast, which did nature damage and ignored armor and stuff like that. So you also gain the range, but it couldn't reset on its cooldown. So it was always, you only got 2 storm strikes during Ascendance. But your auto attacks bypassed armor and stuff like that. But, nowadays auto attacks are basically irrelevant in terms of your damage. Honestly. So it's I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but overall I can't quite complain about my damage. It's easy, that's for sure. It's very easy to do. I just let fate take the wheel with deeply rooted elements and off it goes. But also not having that option of choosing when I want to burst and stuff like that does feel kind of bad. But in order to keep the numbers high, sometimes I like just taking the risk and just letting fate take the wheel, honestly, and just let it go. There's no point in trying if I can get the same amount of numbers out of using deeply rooted elements than trying to plan my cooldowns in general. So I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on enhancement right now. Although I do love the current system, I feel like it's losing its sense of enhancement shaman. Um the introduction to Primordial Storm though, and I brought this up when it first got introduced. Honestly, it is the ideal way to spend Maelstrom, I think. It's really, really cool. I think they should take a look at that and maybe take some of that and put it into Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning and modify those into a way that it feels more Enhancement Shaman. I also feel like some of our issue comes down to the fact that we're a battle mage, I guess, in a sense, where we're half ranged, half melee. And the weird part is we have to be in melee combat to generate, but we don't have to be in melee combat to spend. It seems kind of backwards in my opinion, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but maybe that's probably not an issue at all because if you have to be in melee combat, you're more of a melee unit than you are ranged to generate. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what else they could do. I mean, honestly, I, I'm just lost at this point. I honestly have no idea where Blizzard wants to go with Enhancement Shaman anymore. I thought, for instance, they were wanting to bring out more of its melee style, but as of late, it feels like they want to go more into the range style. I don't know, but then you look at Totemic, and it saw a lot of love in season one, halfway through, and then season two, it was definitely the top spec, I believe. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. But it was definitely a pain in the butt to play. And then they buffed Stormbringer, which brought it up to, just slightly below, but could still compete. And, that felt good. But then come season three, it fell off a cliff. It literally did. And we haven't really seen any compensation to try and bring it up at all. And I know it's definitely not going to be easy, but they got to try something because, a lot of people loved Totemic and want to continue playing it, but, it's so far behind that it's not even like it doesn't have the potential now. In AoE, it definitely is terrifyingly explosive and it can do some serious damage. But in single target, it falls off so hard, and that's where you need it, really. Because in dungeons, a lot of times it's the bosses, not necessarily the trash packs, where a lot of other classes can do what you can do more, but some fall off basically because they have to choose AoE talents over single targets, so you'll see their numbers fall pretty hard. Thankfully, enhancement doesn't really have that issue. We kind of just do single target damage at the same price as doing AoE damage. There's not a huge difference, but yeah, I feel like I'm just talking in circles at this point, but I really do hope to see something soon. I didn't expect patch notes this week, but they did say that the AWC and the MDI are coming up October 1st, I believe. So hopefully we'll get another set of patch notes just before those go live, and maybe we'll see some sort of change. I don't know. I don't know whether that's going to be nerfs to the um the top specs or if it's going to be buffs to the lower specs. I'm not sure yet. But hopefully hopefully we'll see some buffs to at least toteming. At least toteming. And maybe it'll bring it to a better shining point than it is now, because its tier set definitely not good. And now they could just focus strictly on buffing the tier set, which wouldn't be the worst idea. But I have a feeling they don't want to do that, and they might just focus on buffing its straight up toolkit, because if they buff Lavalash, they're just inadvertently buffing the tier set, and that's going to be kind of weird. So they might just focus strictly on the tier set, buffing the secondary Lavalash and the Primordial Storm that it generates on its own. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But anyways, guys, yeah, that's my thoughts right now. I don't know if you guys have anything. Let me know, because I've definitely heard some of your thoughts throughout streams. I know. But yeah, for those of you that don't usually jump into the stream, let me know your thoughts on enhancement right now, and where you would hope to see it in the future, going more towards its old style or continuing on with this style that it's currently in. I'd like to know, because maybe everybody's split on different things. I don't know. But yeah, that is it. This fight was kind of messy anyways, so feel free to laugh when we die. But anyways, guys, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your night or day, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Laters!